Good afternoon. Friday, 12th of July, Anno Domini 2024. Harnwell here at the helm, sitting in for Steve Bannon. We're going to open today's show talking to Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee, who's putting a great deal of pressure, thankfully, on the White House regarding Joe Biden's mental decline, demanding for more information. Congressman, good afternoon to you.
Hey, good afternoon to you too, Ben. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Thanks for coming on the show. I've got a copy of your letter here that you sent to Chairman Jim Comer in front of me. Would you like to explain a little bit of the background about what has motivated you to push so strongly on this issue? Because, of course, some people are suggesting, and I'm not one of them, actually, but some people are suggesting that from a politically strategic point of view, it's better for the GOP to resist pressuring the Democrats to do a switcheroo on their nominee, because Donald Trump will have a better chance to go head-to-head against Joe Biden. I'm not one of those people. I actually think this is an issue of national security now, and he needs to be gone right away. But I'll hand over to you now. Perhaps you could just explain a little bit about what your latest maneuvers here are seeking to achieve.
Well, I couldn't agree with your point more. Actually, we need to put country over party. Could you imagine what would happen if there was an international military incident or some disaster that happened after 8 o'clock? I mean, who's going to be making the call? Is it going to be Hunter Biden? Is it going to be Jill Biden? Is it be one of those 25-year-old publicly educated college kids with a man bun that has his ear? I don't know. But to me, it's a national defense issue completely. And what we've seen is the president's doctor has business dealings with the president through this company. And you saw, and it's been disclosed earlier, but the president received, I believe, $200,000. His brother Jim was involved in this thing, Vesco, I believe, and they and the money just flowed through them. And now it turns out the doctor is working for this organization. So is he going to be? I mean, he wants to keep that gravy train going, that spigot open. So he's not going to tell anybody or he's not going to make a decision that the president's unfit to serve. I think we need to bring some neurology experts into the committee and explain to us exactly what's going on. If we need to go in the skiff in a private situation and bring them in. Everybody's wanting to talk to the president's doctor, but my gosh, he's conflicted and he's compromised. And you're exactly right. This is a national emergency. This is an issue that the enemies are looking at. You know what they're saying and you know what they're thinking. And it's what the rest of us are thinking. It's what the Democrat base is thinking. And the only reason you're not seeing any congressmen jump out ahead of this thing and say, I'm putting myself up to run for president, is because they voted for all these terrible policies that have wrecked this economy and wrecked our border.
Congressman, something that's very close to the hearts of basically every single person who follows the war room right now is the issues of congressional subpoenas. Obviously, because that's the reason why I'm sitting here in this chair today and not Steve Bannon. And there's a degree of militancy from some of the interactions that we're having with the war room posse. What they really want to see, because there's so much going on in the GOP, sadly, which is simply performative. Now, you're not one of them. I know you have a lot of followers. There's a lot of love for you in the war room posse. Not least because you actually did vote. You were one of the congressmen who voted to remove at the end of his term Speaker McCarthy, and that I think has won you a lot of enduring support for that. But there's still a lot of GOP members. I don't think we'll have time to discuss Congresswoman Luna's inherent contempt motion, but there are too many people in the GOP who are simply there, basically like ciphers. They are pretending to support Donald Trump. They're pretending to be MAGA, more or less. They're pretending to be Republicans. And of course, when the issue comes to the fore and it actually requires some action, they fold straight away. And we saw this strategic release, as I call it, of 4 GOP, I think it was, congressmen to go over and vote with the Democrats to block that. So with a view to this, to these subpoenas, why can't we have more congressional subpoenas demanding to see the president's private medical records? Of course, he's going to exert executive privilege, but make him do that. Make him come out and say, you can't see the results of my cognitive decline. Put him under pressure. This is something that Steve Bannon has said so many times. I've learned it off by heart. The difference between the GOP and the Democrats is that the GOP plays patty cake and the Democrats play smash mouth. Now, right now, the Speaker's gavel is in the hands of the Republicans, and there are a lot of people who follow this show who would like to see a little more militancy, not from you, but from your colleagues. They would like to see like dozens and dozens of subpoenas flying every day, so that it puts the Democrats on the back foot like they do to us.
Every day, you're right. We don't have the guts to do it, and the reason we don't have the guts to do it is people aren't holding us accountable. Here's what happens. I was in, Marshall County last night, and man, there's a lot of people that love the war room down there. Man, it's a rural county, and they're hardworking, great, patriotic folks. And they love Steve Bannon. And they say the same thing. Why can't we get this done? And I tell them, because Republicans go home and they speak at their Lincoln Day, their Reagan Day dinners, their MAGA dinners, and they say, we're going to do this to Nancy Pelosi, we're going to do all this. And then, they get reelected, and then they go back to Washington and they sell us down the road. And they compromise. That's why we're $35 trillion in debt. That's why every 100 days we put another dadgum $1 trillion on the backs of Americans and our great-grandchildren, and we have no intention of paying it off. All we have the intention of doing is getting reelected. And dadgummit, we got to start paying attention. I always tell these folks, get your grandkids to show you how to use that computer and find out what these people are voting on. Find out that yesterday we had an appropriations bill that actually increased the money over what Pelosi had spent. And we're controlling the purse strings. We had a simple bill, Ronnie Jackson, who was President Trump's doctor. It just said we're going to keep the medical offices up there under the same budget that we had in 2020. No, they wouldn't do that. We voted it down. Republicans voted it down. We need to start holding our people accountable. This compromise stuff we're getting along, and these great compromisers, I remember when they gave away the Panama Canal. Well, guess who controls both sides of the Panama Canal? China. This country is compromised. Our elected officials are compromised to the highest dadgum levels. And if we do not get control of this thing, we will cease to exist as a nation, because this group, these Marxists that are running the Democrat Party, they've infected our side of the aisle with this money, and all we care about is 2 years, getting elected every 2 years. Well, dadgummit, we need to start throwing some of our people out if they're not going to do better. These folks are compromised. They don't have a leg to stand on. They do not support President Trump. They'll say, and they'll be the ones right in there at the, when he's reelected, they'll be the ones up on the podium and they'll be kissing his butt. But it's the same old game. We need to throw them out, and that's the bottom line.
Well, you just mentioned the problem with the Democrats, and of course, nobody who follows this show is a fan of the Democrats. But the folks that the War Room Posse really hate are these performative Republican in name only congressmen. Those are the guys that really get the pulses, the blood pressure up on this show. You know what they call your speaker? What his nickname is on Getter? It's Speaker No Johnson, because they don't think he has one. Congressman Burchett, thanks very much, for coming on the show. What's next for you in what you're doing here to try and sort of bring out some of the dirty secrets that the Democratic the Democratic establishment is desperately trying to suppress? What's next, and how can people keep up with what you're doing? Obviously, you'll come on the show again and debrief everyone. But in the meantime, where can they go?
Well, at Tim Burchett, my X account is just At Tim Burchett. That's the cool one. I've got an official one, but on X it's just at Tim Burchett, TimBurchett. And thank y'all so much. And hey, and all the people out there, all the believers out there, please pray for our friend Steve Bannon. Pray that he's safe. Pray that he'll be justified in this mission, and pray that justice comes for him and that he gets out very soon.
Congressman Burchett, thank you. By the way, look, I'm not really on Twitter. I have a very dormant account. But if basically people send me things where I've appeared, and I think I only follow the RAV account on, inexplicably, on my Twitter feed, I randomly, and I don't know why it is, I often see tweets of you there owning the libs. It's a great blessing, and it's always a surprise to see, and it always makes me smile and cheers me up. So sort of Godspeed to what you're doing, and I wish you every success, and I look forward to you coming on the show again in the very near future, I hope. Congressman Tim Burchett, thanks so much. God bless.
Thank you, brother. God has blessed me. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Okay, so next up we have Hans von Spankovsky, who's going to just tell us a little bit about the Project 2025 continuing fallout. As we suggested on the show yesterday, this is basically it's basically the Project 2025 issue, which is being brought up again and again and again as a distraction by the mainstream media to deflect attention from the implosion that is taking place at the top of the Democrat ticket. Hans, good afternoon to you. Thanks for coming on the show. What's the latest to do with the Project 2025 fallout? And I'd like to ask you a little bit in a moment, just for your reaction on how President Trump and his campaign team has handled this, because I think you're doing great work. I've had a look at the book, 900 or so pages. It's a fantastic document. But from yourself, can you give me a little bit of an update, please?
Sure. Well, there's the old saying in Hollywood, even bad publicity is good publicity. And frankly, look, you are absolutely right. Look, this has been out for a year, these policy proposals. There's this 900-page book that we put together. We've been working on it since 2022, and now all of a sudden it's in the news, being unfairly criticized by Joe Biden and his political allies. It is a distraction. They want to distract people from the physical and mental issues that we all are seeing with their nominee, Joe Biden. And in fact, they're fabricating criticisms of it. But, the good thing about that is that this is not secret. We've got a website. We have the 900 pages laid out, and the more people go there to look at it and read it, I think the more they come back saying, all these proposals are common sense. They're all reforms of the federal government intended to make government agencies stop doing what they shouldn't be doing and bring them back to their core functions so that they are efficiently doing what they should be doing. So from that standpoint, it's actually a good thing because more Americans are seeing and reading it.
Yeah, and what about the way that the Trump campaign has tried to create a sort of an ambiguity regarding the relationship between the president and his incoming administration and the work that you're doing?
Well, look, the president right now is in campaign mode. I don't think he's actually had time to read it. I think that if President Trump gets reelected, he will then have an actual chance to take a look at it, and I think he'll like it. It is along the lines of the many things that he has recommended being done in the federal government, and I suspect and hope, and we all do, that what will happen is the same thing that happened when Ronald Reagan got elected. Look, this is not something new. Yes, this is a greatly expanded version of something that we did called Mandate for Leadership when Ronald Reagan was first elected. And what happened back then was the president of Heritage at the time, Ed Fulner, gave this copy to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan read it, liked it so much that at his first meeting of his cabinet secretaries, he handed out copies to every one of his secretaries and said, you need to read this and you need to follow these recommendations. And frankly, I think we will see the same thing happen if President Trump is reelected.
And is the work ongoing? The development on the strategy, the process, the logistics of implementing these great ideas, is that work still ongoing at the Heritage Foundation?
Well, it is, because like I said, this is an expanded program. Keep in mind that these recommendations on reforming the government didn't just come from Heritage. We had almost 600 people working on this from over 120 conservative organizations. And the other big problem that a president faces when he's elected in November is he has to take office on January 20th. And in that time, he's got to come up with several thousand political appointees to take over the leadership of a gigantic federal government. And so one of the other things we're doing is something that's never been done before is we are recruiting individuals now. We're setting up a database. We're doing the vetting ourselves so that when a president comes in, he's going to have a ready, large group of potential personnel to pick from who are going to hopefully implement all of these policy proposals. So that's another part of the mission that is ongoing.
So, I mean, the point here to underline is that what the concept behind Project 2025 is that it's giving the president a menu of things that he could potentially choose from to try to not repeat some of the missed opportunities in the first administration in 2016. I mean, that's the concept, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's basic serving suggestions.
Right. And in fact, look, there's a chapter on each of the major government departments. And I would suggest that anyone who's hearing the fabrications and lies being told about it, look, go to the website, pick out one of the federal departments you're interested in, Department of Education, Department of Justice, read the chapter. I think folks will read it. And again, they will say, boy, this makes perfect sense. This is what ought to be done. And for example, Department of Homeland Security, it lays out what should be the top true priorities of the Department of Homeland Security: securing the border and enforcing our immigration laws. Well, I can see why Joe Biden last night at his press conference would say, oh my gosh, that's so radical, because they've been doing the opposite. But I think the average American would say, well, yeah, of course, that's exactly what the Department of Homeland Security should be doing.
Yeah. So in a certain sense, the antagonism coming from the Democrats is twofold. The first is that they're desperate for any kind of distraction that they can get their hands on to cover up the fact, for example, at this key NATO 75th anniversary conference yesterday, with all the NATO leaders standing over his shoulders, he introduces President Zelensky by calling him President Putin. So the idea that they can latch on to something like Project 2025 as if it's an idea for the unconstitutional overthrow of the whole of the American system of government. You can understand why they are so desperate. And of course, the other thing motivating them is that they don't have anything similar. They don't have an equivalent, do they? They don't have any real concept of what they want to do with power, because it's just floundering from one disaster to another.
Well, no, that's right. And in fact, when they call this anti-democratic, they must be looking in the mirror, because the whole point of Project 2025 is to return us to the rule of law and the constitutional limits on government. What they don't like about this is the severe problem we've developed in the last 50 years. In American schools and civics classes, they teach you that we have three branches of government, Congress, the courts, and the presidency. But in fact, we now have a fourth branch. It's the administrative state. It's these huge bureaucratic agencies that have overwhelming power and are staffed by bureaucrats who are not answerable to voters and often are not answerable to Congress either. And that's a real problem. The whole purpose of Project 2025, as I said, is to bring these agencies back within their core functions, have the lawmaking done by Congress, not by these agencies, and have the president enforce these laws and not have these agencies, like I said, interfering not only with the state governments and the things they do, but with the everyday lives of Americans, which we see more and more and more of constantly.
This, I think, my next point could take up a whole show all by itself, but there is an undercurrent that you see in the political left in America, in continental Europe, in the UK. They have you can understand why in each context where you have the left, they really do embrace this idea of the administrative state, and they have a fundamental fear. They're supposed to be notionally the party of the people, but really they are absolutely terrified of the popular will representing itself through the ballot box. And they in whatever national context you look at, you analyze, they're always trying to undermine and frustrate the popular will, either through pushing things through the bench, through judicial activism, through international treaties, through supranational organizations. These are all pushed by the left. The reason that it removes not only accountability, but it removes sort of the oversight on behalf of we the people in all of these iterations. And of course, I think that's really why, fundamentally, perhaps the third reason why they dislike the concept of Project 2025, because it's trying to reconnect, recouple the huge bureaucracy of the federal government with the popular will. And there's nowhere this is more visible, I think, than on the issue of immigration, which is not a vote winner anywhere. But the elites they go to supporting this invasion of third world illegals, like cats go to catnip. It is absolutely unbelievable. And of course, they're trying to frustrate the popular will from manifesting itself on this. Hands-on Spankovsky, thanks very much for coming on the show today. Where can people go to keep up with your analysis, your insights, and what you're doing at the Heritage Foundation?
Well, for me, they can go to heritage.org, heritage.org. But if they want to read about Project 2025, go to project2025.org, and they'll see everything that's being proposed.
Thanks very much for coming on the show, Hans. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I just want to give we're going to go to have a word with someone that I haven't sat down and spoken to for quite some time, Dr. Malone. Before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to the live chats on Getter. I was following the Getter live chat this morning when Congressman Gates was hosting the morning show. It's always extremely engaging. Shout out as well to the live chat on our Rumble channel, on Telegram, on Real America's Voice. Get ready with our heart emojis, folks. Just want to say, there we go. Love you all. Thanks for your constant support. Okay, Dr. Malone, good afternoon to you.
How you doing, Ben?
I'm great, thanks. I'm great. I was looking at some of the information on your new book here, which looks absolutely fascinating. I don't know where you get the time to write all your stuff and to publish books as well. But your new book is called Psy-War, right, which is written together with your wife, Jill. Could you tell us a little bit about this, please? I guess the concept Psy-War is pretty much synonymous with perhaps the more familiar term of PSYOP, right?
PSYOP, psychological warfare, fifth generation warfare, propaganda and censorship. These are all of a kind. And the genesis of this is really an extension of our prior book, The Lies My Government Told Me and the Better Future Coming. And the intersection between that and our Substack, who is Robert Malone. And in the Substack, as a consequence of what I've been subjected to and what I've observed happening in the world, I've become aware that the issues that matter most are fundamentally freedom. Freedom comes in many different aspects. Economic freedom may be among the most important, which is the problem with the fiat currency and the central bank digital currency and all those kinds of things. But we also have the issues of freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And this really crystallized when I was on a Great Britain news segment over a year ago. And as you know now, in Britain, they have very strong censorship requirements, and they have an oversight board that has basically spanked and intimidated GB News. We got the news.
Dr. Malone, would you mind just holding on for one moment? We're just going to go to a 2-minute break. Folks, hold on. Don't go away. We're going to be back with Dr. Malone shortly. And also to hear about the troubles he's had with an organized advertising campaign that will boycott any forum where he goes to speak. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.
All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back, folks. We were just here talking to Dr. Robert Malone, father of the mRNA technology, giving a short account of what motivated him to expand his political, philosophical horizons and to write this fascinating new book, Psywar. Dr. Malone, you were saying to me just before the show about some of the problems that have been caused to you in a specific targeted fashion. And I think unless you're really following this, it sounded very similar to the organization called Sleeping Giants that did a huge financial blow on Breitbart. Would you like to just sort of explain what the cost is to people who have the courage to speak out against the fabricated synthetic narrative?
So what you're talking about is, or alluding to, is the House Judiciary Committee report that was just issued 2 days ago on the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, or GARM. This is an organization that once again ties together the largest advertisers of the world and is very tightly associated with, wait for it, the World Economic Forum. They're actually promoted and sponsored by the WEF. And what GARM does, we've been aware of it for quite a while. I didn't realize that I'd actually been specifically targeted by them. GARM acts to withhold funding for advertising from any platform or podcaster, et cetera, including, in this case, Joe Rogan. They specifically targeted Joe Rogan and Spotify at the behest of Coca-Cola to threaten to demonetize Spotify if they didn't remove and censor my presentation, interaction with Joe that went so huge, and potentially also Joe. So what this is an alliance of the very largest corporations through their advertising arms to ostensibly patrol internet free speech as it relates to topics that we can all agree on. We don't want hate speech. We don't want pornography readily available to children, etc. But this is another case of where the globalists say one thing, but then they do another. They broaden their mandate. They broaden their activities. And here they're targeting anybody who is speaking truth that they find inconvenient. In this case, as you'll recall, with Joe Rogan broadcast talking about the COVID truths that were being hidden from the general public, having to do with the jab and everything else. So that's the way this game works. And thanks and shout out to the House Judiciary Committee for citing this and producing this fantastic report that is has detailed documentation about how this really globalist alliance is working to shut down free speech all over the world.
Yeah, people should know this, Dr. Malone. But before I started working on the show, I'd done a number of things which had quite a bit of coverage in the press. And I discovered, and people have mentioned to me, that these things are no longer available or findable on Google. So I have, for example, the very, very strong suspicion that since I started working on this show, Google, I don't know what the relationships are, but I can see the end result has been suppressing my name. And these things are simply no longer findable anymore.
Steve predicted this 2 years ago. The Wayback Machine, by the way, is being scrubbed. Wikipedia has just gone full-blown crazy leftist. And fascinatingly, Wikipedia doesn't have any listing for the GARM agreement. I can't figure out why that would be. In terms of Google, they directly censored us in real time when I spoke about Matthias Desmet's hypothesis concerning mass formation on Joe Rogan. They went in and directly manually edited search results because it was functionally breaking the internet. It was the most highly searched term at the time. What I want to say, Ben, right before we jumped to the break, is that what I realized in listening to this counterpoint on GB News that was representing the interests of the government is the position was taken that once the government is elected, it has the right to do anything it wants until the next election, including deploying propaganda and psychological warfare technology. This tech is so powerful that they are able to control everything that you hear, think, feel, and encounter. All information is able to be controlled using modern psychological warfare technology. And it is designed to manipulate the thoughts and emotions of the recipients. It was designed for offshore combat against the likes of Al-Qaeda and in Afghanistan, et cetera. And it's now being deployed against the citizens of virtually all the Western, quote, democracies. And in many cases, it's being deployed by their military units, like the 77th Brigade in the UK. You're probably familiar with that. Anytime I go over there to support Andrew Bridgen or Nigel Farage or anybody else, I get hammered by the 77th Brigade. This is a function. This is a British military unit that's been existent since before World War I. But it is now absolutely turned on the populace of the UK by their government in order to harass and censor people that are saying things that the government doesn't like. That is cyber. That's what we're in the middle of right now. And what the book is designed to do, and this is a shout out to the posse, the purpose of the book is to help you to understand this technology, how it works, how they deploy it, why they deploy it, and the logic behind it, what is going on at the higher level. This is another part of the quiver that is being deployed by the globalists under the guise of the WEF and the United Nations, both of which now position themselves as the new one world government. And most importantly, it speaks about the new global public-private partnerships, which exist above this ostensible new world government structure that is being set up under the UN and Agenda 2030. That's where we're heading. And as you know, I've said again and again, and it's not going to surprise the posse. If you spend time in Italy, Mussolini's definition of fascism is basically corporatism, is basically public-private partnerships. We have now a globalized techno-fascism or techno-totalitarianism, and it is on a roll, and it wants to eat your lunch. It wants to control your finances. It wants to control your life. It wants to control all information that you encounter. It wants to control what you believe and what you feel. And the only way I think I can help in terms of empowering people to be able to resist this is to help teach them what their tricks are. And just like with marketing and selling hamburgers and suds, et cetera, Once you understand their marketing techniques, and marketing and propaganda are kissing cousins. Once you understand their techniques, then you become more resistant to it. That's the reason to read the book.
Dr. Malone, I think you've done a great service to humanity with this book. And it's my deepest wish that you'll come back on the show in the very near future and sort of break down what you've done, your inspiration for writing that, and the functional use it can have for everyone, not just the War Room posse, but for everyone who's interested, already alive to the cultural fascism, if not literal fascism, that is forming well underway in front of our very eyes. Dr. Malone, thank you very much for coming on the show today, and I hope we'll catch up again with you soon. And I think this book is something that I should flag up for everybody to take a look at. Is it out yet?
No, it's scheduled for end of September. Hopefully will be earlier, but it's currently available for pre-order in both Kindle and hardback.
Dr. Malone, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
God bless. We're going to go to Jillian Barberie now, because there's a phenomenon. We discussed this on the show yesterday with EJ Antoni from the Heritage Foundation, just how difficult it is to make it to the end of the month. And one of the factors, of course, is just the soaring cost of living. One of the consequences of this is debt, household debt, credit card debt. A lot of people are struggling with debts that have been accumulated. And of course, as interest rates now started projected to rise, there's a lot of fear bubbling under amongst the very sector of the population that really needs both the Republicans and the Democrats to be paying attention to them. And these are the people who are most ignored by the Uni Party. Jillian, good afternoon to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Wow, you just said it. It is a scary time. There are people, when I was 25, 26 and my career was starting, I was looking at homes. Now 25 and 26-year-olds, it's a whole different deal. Most of them are still at home. They are in credit card debt. There's a whole phenomenon out there that, that most Americans are up to their limit in credit card debt. The average American is $100,000 in debt. And this happens to anyone. It happened to me. It is called life. I had job loss after 20 years, divorce, I had cancer, and life can come at you really hard. And when it does, I lost a lot of things. And so you have to bounce back. And that's where Done with Debt came in. I don't know if you've ever been in this position, Ben, but cancer for me took a back seat because all the letters I was getting, the phone calls are like harassing. You get anxiety. I never had anxiety in my life. And I started freaking out. What Done with Debt did. And I had a friend tell me about it. And I thought, there's no way this can happen. It happened overnight. Literally, the phone calls stopped. What Done with Debt did for me, they stopped all the harassing phone calls, the letters, they took over everything. And then they said, okay, let's make a plan. We don't want to have a massive loan. We don't want you to file for bankruptcy. We don't want, this kind of, they work with banks, they work with credit card companies. And so they know all the deals that are out there. And there are a lot of deals that the average American, I didn't know about. And when I say deals, I mean, they'll settle for pennies on the dollar. In other words, if you have nothing, they say, well, go pound sand. And these companies are so wealthy, they don't bother with some of the debts. They're just like, wipe it clean. It's fine. They won't even recover the money. They're fine with it. And you can walk away from some of it, not all of it. And Done with Debt will put you on a plan. I've been through it. And listen, it's hell. Like I was on TV for 30 years, Ben, 30 years in America and Canada. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you've made, it can come up and bite you. And you don't know when it's going to happen. Yeah.
Jillian, where can people go? This Done with Debt, where can people go to find out more about it or perhaps ask for some consultation?
Right. So you go to donewithdebt.com and they will just sit with you and they'll go, there's no shame in my game. I tell people, don't be afraid. Just go to donewithdebt.com on your phone, on your computer. They'll have a consultation with you. You'll meet with them and they'll formulate a plan for you. And It happens overnight. No more. Like, I would be sitting at dinner with my kids and I'd have chemo, and then all of a sudden, boom, a phone call. So go to donewiththat.com. They will help you, and your anxiety will be lifted. It's not the end of the world. Trust me. I had death and taxes at my door, essentially, and I survived it, Ben. So you can too. Go to donewiththat.com, and they can help out. They will. They did for me.
Jillian, Barberie, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing that with us. And we look forward to catching up with you soon, I hope. Thank
you so much, Ben. It's great to meet you.
God bless you. Joe Allen, good afternoon to you.
Ben Harnwell, how are you?
Great, thanks. So look, I know you had a cold open. We'll do it tomorrow. We're not going to have a chance, sadly, to get it in the show today. But Elon Musk has been pushing his Neuralink again. Do you want to give a quick overview on what the developments are there?
Yes, I think there's a lot to think about with Elon Musk here. You've got a new kind of update that they posted to X with the CEO and various scientists. They're talking not about Neuralink necessarily as a purely healing device, as always. Elon Musk is talking about the new device telepathy in terms of what it can do to help normal people in the future become superhuman. This is important for a lot of different reasons. I think that maybe the most important is that all of the conservatives who you hear yapping about transhumanism being the greatest sin, for the most part, with very few exceptions, and we sorely need Steve Bannon's voice on this, because Elon Musk increasingly is considered to be a kind of savior figure for the center-right and even far-right of conservative America and Europe. What Elon Musk is the world's wealthiest transhumanist. And what Elon Musk is doing is paving the way for technological developments that will go far beyond anything that an American conservative or a European conservative would traditionally consider bolstering of our traditional ways of life. You heard Dr. Malone talking about GARM, for instance, and this is supposed to be some sort of World Economic Forum plot to stifle American voices. Well, Elon Musk, the savior of the West, has, of course, reintegrated GARM into the X platform. So the safety team announced this last week, that they will continue partnering with this organization to ensure that only safe content is posted on X. Aside from the brain chip, of course, you have high dollar contracts with the U.S. military in order to facilitate communications and drone strikes.
Can I stop you there just one moment? Because that's counterintuitive, really counterintuitive, because many people will look at Twitter/X and think that this is following on from what Dr. Malone was saying in the previous segment, and they will think that X is probably one of the last fora where people can go to actually hear prohibited ideas. And what you're saying here runs counter to that. That's going to surprise a lot of people, right?
It shouldn't surprise anybody who's been listening to the War Room for the last 3.5 years, but I think that it's very easy for people to see the world in terms of cartoonish villains and cartoonish heroes. The cartoonish villains, of course, being Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari, people like that. And the cartoonish heroes of this tale, at least from our perspective, would be Elon Musk or perhaps Peter Thiel. What I'm saying is that it depends on your perspective. From the perspective of a society hurtling towards what they believe to be a transhuman future, there is absolutely no reason that transhumanism or this supposed singularity would have to be left-wing or globalist. In fact, the dominant forces are in general libertarian. And so, yeah, I would like to dispel any illusions that Elon Musk is in some sense preserving traditional ways of life or anything remotely close to it. And I would like to warn conservatives who are lining up to kiss the imperial ring that what they are doing is, in fact, betraying everything that conservatism, in air quotes, is supposed to stand for.
Joe, look, thanks very much for coming on the show. Very quickly, where can people go to get a copy of Dark Aeon and to catch up with your analysis and your commentary on these themes?
I've got signed copies of Dark Aeon available. By the way, it's Aeon now. If Steve Bannon is not here to correct me, I will go with Aeon. Signed copies available at joebot.xyz or darkaeon.xyz. I've got every Monday a new column up. Every Thursday, a new podcast up, the Omega Point podcast. Come on down, enjoy the mispronunciation of names and the, in general, dark view of the technological future.
Joe, you're a hero to many. Thanks for coming on the show. Catch up with you soon. God bless.
Free Steve Bannon.
Free Steve Bannon. Mike Lindell, good afternoon to you.
Well, hello.
Hey, how's it going? What have you got for us today?
Well, we've got the best special ever for the War Room Posse. This is an exclusive, everybody. This is our new commercial, comes out next week, but you get a special discount for the War Room Posse. This is a bed topper I developed, the most affordable topper and the best topper, mattress topper in history. It turns any bed into the best bed you will ever use. It's got the queen size was $99.98. So that's 50% off. There it is, $99.98, over 50% off. The king size, $119.98. You guys, these have the My Pillow patented foam. Then it's got over 14,000 comfort supports just on the queen alone. I sleep on this. It is amazing. Remember, we have a 60-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty. Any bed, new bed, old bed, it doesn't matter. Get them for every bed in your house. Promo code WARROOM. And you guys go to the website and you can get all the other specials that are still there. I told Steve we would break records while he was in being a political prisoner. And this supports the War Room. It supports My Pillow, my employees. And we're just so grateful to the War Room Posse.
Mike, you have the closing word. God bless. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow live.